Good morning, gardening friends. Today is Sunday, October 20th. It's about 9 o'clock, and it is a beautiful 57 degrees. We've had a beautiful week of fall weather. Miss Mimi is inside, snuggled up in her quilt. She does come out every now and then, now that it's getting cooler again. But I've been working in the backyard this week and have a lot to show. And my first Sanqua Camellia is in bloom in the front yard. Sun always looks nice shining through the leaves of the bananas back here. Let me get a sip of iced tea. And let's get started. Here you can see the cold weather is starting to affect my plumeria. All of the leaves will fall off of that, and it will look quite pitiful till late spring. My banana is doing well. It's getting taller. I don't know if this angel's trumpet is going to bloom this year. This was the one that got defoliated when we power washed the house. But it is nice and green, so it will come back. Laura petalum are getting their color back again, and an occasional flower here and there. I've got my umbrella down because I kind of want the warmth of the sun today. I don't think I showed you these last week, but I got two new pelargoniums, or we call them geraniums. It's unusual to see them this time of the year. They normally aren't sold in the fall, but I happened to go to a place where they had 3 of them, so I went ahead and bought 2. The chrysanthemums that I had in those pots had already bloomed out. My herbs are doing pretty well. I've got a feeling my tarragon is not going to make it, but they told me that when they sold it to me because we're a zone too high. But it still has some life left in it. And I've got 2 kinds of mints. This is my grandmother's mint. And the other one, I believe, is a chocolate orange mint. And the thyme is doing okay. There is Vladimir. He's one of the other stray cats you don't see all that much. He's waiting because I just put out food. I have 2 bowls of food now for all the cats. I did go ahead, since I have in the front yard noticed some paper whites coming up. I went and bought me some paper whites, and these 2 pots here I planted paper whites in last night. And also, this coleus is a 2nd generation of the one in my front porch. I just potted it yesterday, so I'm keeping water in it. You know, it's got roots, but the roots grew in water, so they're not the same as ground roots. It's going to take it a little while to get established. So I'll keep the ground really soggy and then gradually start letting it dry out. My species amaryllis are nice and green. It looks like this one bromeliad is turning yellow, but I think that may be the mother plant, so I may wind up, for now it still looks okay, but I may actually split that into 2 smaller plants. Of course, my nepenthes is still sending out pictures. I did not clean that up, but I will. Probably when I replace the caladiums for the winter. But right now they still look okay. Rose-scented geranium is still doing well. This is a clivia, or clivia, however you want to pronounce it. It's related to amaryllis. I got that from Walmart, I think 3 years ago, as a single bulb. And it has multiplied. It has not yet bloomed. It takes a while for them to be established. Cardboard palm, still doing well. Here now you can see the buds are a little bigger on my golden chalice vine. This is the time of the year that they bloom. After this one blooms, I will transplant it into a slightly larger pot. Of course, you can still see my bougainvillea is doing well. Of course, I just bought that, so it ought to be doing well. Whew, the sun is out nice today. Got my fountains on. I did trim back this hydrangea. Got rid of all the dead blossoms. This pleated, I was sold this as pleated palm, but it's actually called ground palm, I found out later, is doing well. When it gets big like this, it is distinguishable from the aspidistra, but when it stays smallish, it kind of looks like aspidistra and blends in. It will die back the very first frost we get. It will immediately turn yellow and shrivel away. My lady palm has recovered from last winter. It's got a new pup way over here. Back in here, I may wind up digging up. I planted, this is a white angel's trumpet, and that one is a pink from a cutting I took this year. I may wind up digging up that pink and putting it in another place that I will show you shortly. Uh-oh, something knocked over one of my Japanese ground orchids. The kittens that were in the backyard have found another home. The mother was here to eat. The first cold day we had, the whole family, Vladimir is the father, the whole family disappeared for 2 days. I haven't cleaned this up yet, but will. Back in here, all is looking... We haven't had any rain, by the way, since a couple of weeks before Helene. So it's been, I want to say, almost 2 months without rain, so I'm having to water every other day. The cold at least helps hold the water in a little bit. Oh, I'm starting to get flowers opening on my Fatsia japonicas. I'll take a close-up of that. I've got 4 Fatsia japonicas here. It looks like they all have... No, this one does. Yeah, that one has a bud way down in the center. This is the only one that doesn't. The one on the far end has a bud as well. Here is where I was working most of the week, cleaning up the top of this fence. It has the neighbor on the other side years ago planted a trumpet vine, and it still is there even though it's been dug out and rooted up many times. And you have to keep it off the top of your fence because I don't know if you can see it. I think I'm pointing to it over here. If it starts rooting, it'll like get between the fence boards and the supports and start getting fatter and push the boards apart, it'll bust the fence up, bottom line. And it'll send out roots. Like that top of the fence was a little rotted because that's an old fence, and it sent out roots into the wood actually. So I probably will be replacing that fence at some point, but not today. So all through back in here, I was cleaning up. I've done everything I'm going to do back in there but weed. That's the one thing I'll do this week, is finish up the weeding. And I have uncovered a gap right here. So here is where the boxwood was that I dug up and moved last week. And had one in here, but it was so covered over by the overgrowth, I'm not planning on putting another one back there. I also have some ground palm that's kind of getting bullied about. So I've been thinking about what I'm going to put in this opening here. And what I'm thinking is a pink angel's trumpet to match with that first pink angel's trumpet, or move some of this large pine cone ginger. You can see at the top it sends out an orange cone. I had some in the back corner here, but unfortunately I cut it back. It's still in the ground, so I may move it. But either one of those two I thought would be good to put in that gap. That's the one good thing about having an established garden. You really only plant the gaps after you take things out, or things die, or things move. The yellow jasmine is cut back to the trellises. Probably won't bloom because I cut quite a lot of it off. And I didn't mention last week, but this palm, the Pendo Palm, has sent up 2 flower stalks, first time. Well, no, I take that back. It sent up small stalks last year. But you can see, I don't know if you can see or not, but there's a lot of bee activity going on in the flowers. Bees really like the palm inflorescences. Got to get this palm out of the way here. I will be trimming up that palm this week. This week is big trash week, and so I plan my big loads for that day. And so I'm going to take out some of these lower fronds here, so that way you can walk under it and it's not quite as much of a bully to the plants that are back in the beds. There you can see one of the sky pencils that I planted. I've had sky pencils there before. This year they died because of drought. I don't know why the year before, but I have one on the other side as well. There's the other sky pencil. I'm matching these sky pencils on either side of my statue. These have been there for probably about 8 or 9 years. I do find that with windy weather, they do require some binding together to stay small. I did trim up the holly hedge, or what used to be the holly hedge, back in there. Beaufort holly. This was the last garden that I developed back against this fence, because for years all it was 13 Beaufort hollies about 8 foot tall, and it is the sunniest spot of my backyard because it's east facing, and I finally decided to plant something else there. Plus the backyard started as a collection of things. I had a collection of palms in the backyard, and the front yard was a collection of camellias. Well, since I've grown older, the collections are still there, but I've started sort of cross-pollinating and putting things outside of the collection area. So this palm, Pendo Palm, was put here to mirror the Pendo Palm on that side. So I've kind of stretched the palms and put them all over in the backyard. No new flowers on my knockout rose. Encore azalea is blooming. It loves it now that I've freed it up from the banana tree that was covering over it. Oh, and it looks like I may have a strawberry. One of the plants I bought this year has a flower on it. Of course, my kumquats are ripening, as are my satsumas. They're not ripe yet, neither one, but they will be. So yeah, that inflorescence on the Pendo Palm looks glorious today. And I did cut back the snowball viburnum in the back corner. It was as tall as the Mediterranean fan palm, but the problem is that it doesn't have strong roots, and being in the corner like that of the fence, it had very weak roots. So when winds would come, it was about 2 or 3 feet above the fence, they would whip it around and twist it and bend it, and I just got tired of looking at it, so I cut it back down, and it looks more in proportion with the yard now. So I like the way this is coming together. As I said, I'm thinking of moving either one of these pink angel trumpets or else these ginger lilies to this side, so it would be something tall on that side. Just an honorable mention to my pecan tree. It is huge and looking quite nice. But let's move on to the front. The Ozark Plum is now the same size as my other tree. Kumquat tree. The kumquat tree is probably about 15, 20 years old. The Ozark Plum, I believe this is only the 2nd year. So I'd like to keep it the same size, the same height as the kumquat. So this is the fruit section around my statue of Eve. Get it? Being fruitful, bananas, plum. Well, yeah, you got it. Oh, I see some flowers starting. Well, I see the buds on this Fatsia Japonica as well. These always bloom, and when they bloom, they have a spicy scented flower, slightly peppery, sweet and peppery smelling. Oh, there's a big one on this side. I will clean this up this week. I'll tell you a trick when you have an old garden like this and you've got weeds all over. If you can keep it edged and you can keep the focal points, like where the statuary are, looking good, the rest of the garden people kind of ignore. You can get away with being a little sloppy. My ligularia is starting to send up a bloom spike. This side did not send up a spike. This is the older one by 1 year. I think this is 3 years, the other is 2 years. Oh, I did find out. Beware of wandering dude. The back garden that we just left had wandering dude that was extending out way into the grass over here. And I literally got an armful of it, or 2 armfuls, however you want to say it, of wandering dude, and I threw them in the trash can or my bag for the trash. And it turns out I am allergic to wandering dude. I started itching, and for about 3 hours after coming in contact with it, I got welts on my arm. And I thought it was poison ivy. I was wondering what's going on. I've never really, this was on the inside of my arm. I mean, I've cut it off before or broken it off before with my hands, but it didn't bother my hands. But in any event, all the welts and everything went away in about 3 hours. But that was something new. So be wary of wandering dude. Some people are allergic to it. I did look it up, and it did say that it was from the sap. But second time I used it or worked with it, I was careful not to get the sap on me, but it didn't make any difference. I still broke out. See, here's some more of that ginger way back in there, and that's the one I may move because it doesn't need to be that close to the garage. This little bed is doing well with the alyssum. Still smells sweet. I can smell it from where I'm standing. I didn't do anything about the Gara yet. And the yellow pansies are looking nice. Back in here, nothing new. Vinca is just performing and performing. One thing that did do well this year were my wild daylilies. These are I call them the Tawny Daylilies. They're the wild ones that grow up north. And I'm hoping that they overtake that entire bed at some point in time. And they're getting close. I think this is like their 5th year in that spot. Here's the other bougainvillea. We did work a little on holes under my fence where animals get in. And Godot looks like he was visiting his water bowl yesterday, my tortoise, because there's sand inside of it. I just filled it yesterday. That's his telltale sign, because I guess he paddles in it, or waddles in it, one or the other. This looks nice with the fountain going in the background. I think you can see it. But we will be working more on this area. Can't do too much until after the satsumas are harvested. Once when that tree pops up, you can get in there and do some work. Back in here, my potato vine, it looks like the bugs have pretty much left it. So it's just I call it my speckled potato vine. I'll create a trend. People from around the world will want a piece of this speckled potato vine. It fills the space. It's good. There's my lily of the valley bush. It's doing well. I did limb up this palm this last week. It looks a lot better. I see there are a couple of blossoms, 3 blossoms on this camellia. They're going to be pink. And here, of course, are still the flowers of my toad lily. It seems like it likes that spot, except it does get dried out from being underneath that tree, satsuma tree. This satsuma tree is a little bit faster or ahead of the ones in the backyard. I don't know as if this holly is going to make it. It's in a sunnier spot. And if it doesn't, then I'll put the trellis back that was there. This is the bad thing about these nandinas. I have gone in here and cut back 3 times so far this year, and it sends up these little pups all over the place. It's probably why they don't really sell it anymore. Every one of them will grow into a tall bush. So I have, here's the prime example of something that I just cut down about 2 weeks ago. So I will come back with I have a set of pruners on an extended handle, and they're doing well. My neighbor got a new driveway, and the dumpster disappeared this week. Yay! My datura, Sarah likes the datura, so we're letting it reseed there, and if a whole clump of daturas comes up next year, we're going to leave them. This has done really well, this mandevilla. It's got a whole bunch of new sprouts. Pretty. I may save that one because it's in a small enough pot. That is the dilemma with tropical plants for frost protection. As they get older and you get more attached to them, they get into bigger pots, which makes them heavier. So it's harder to get them inside. So stick with plastic and try to keep them small. There is a little baby English dogwood like this over here. When I first moved here 31 years ago, this whole area between the two properties, and Sarah was here too, between our properties, was all English dogwoods. And then one year it got some kind of a disease and they all died out. And believe it or not, these are from the roots of the English dogwood that was there all that time ago. So if you ever plant it, the roots stay viable for many, many years. Oh, before we forget, the first camellia blossoms. This is a Sanqua. It is called White Dove. This one and that one. White Dove is always the first camellia to bloom. And Sanquas are from Japan. They have a smaller leaf, a jagged, smaller leaf. And they typically are early bloomers. Sanqua, looking it up, supposedly means mountain tea flower in Japanese. At least that's one of the translations. Reason being that all camellias are related to tea. In fact, the tea producing camellia you can buy, I think it's called sinensis, and its flowers aren't that brilliant, which is why people typically don't grow it, but you can make tea from it, from the leaves. I looked it up because I thought that would be a neat thing to have one of those and make tea from it, but you have to pick the leaves and dry them and roast them, and it's a lot of work. I looked into it. It's almost as bad as getting an olive tree. You know, you think, oh, I want an olive tree. I can grow my own olives. But then you have to brine them for so many weeks and change the water and brine them again. It's like, I'll buy mine. So, in any event, first two camellias of the year. And let's see, all Sanquas are camellias, but not all camellias are Sanquas. Sanqua is an offshoot of the family. This is looking good. No bees today. Must be too chilly for them. Of course, I don't see any flowers on that wandering dude. This clump of bananas has done well. It is moving to the front of that bed, which is good. I don't want it moving closer to the house, and somehow it knows that. It's reaching towards the sun. These two gardenias have recovered from being yanked out of the ground. Unfortunately, well, it looks like one of these is doing okay. These two gardenias rather got bullied by the ginger lily. That is a cardamom ginger. It does have a blossom that looks like a cluster of snails. However, it doesn't bloom for us in well, I'm in zone 9A. I was 8B for many years. You need a couple of years of no frost, because frost kills it back to the ground, basically. And it smells, if you rub the leaves or break the leaves, it smells exactly of the spice cardamom, because that's where it comes from. Not that particular one, but cardamom comes from a ginger lily. Back in here, all looks well. Oh, next week, maybe next week, my cassia has got buds. You will see some beautiful buttercup yellow flowers on the cassia. I did clean up the hydrangea behind it. And back in here, all is well. This cycad is sending up new leaves. It's kind of late in the season, as is that female. I hope that the leaves age in some so that the frost, when it comes, doesn't kill them back. Fresh leaves like that are very susceptible to frosts and cold weather. Ponytail palm is doing well. I have had it in this spot before. That's another option for putting in that bare spot in the backyard, is to put a pedestal there and put the ponytail palm there for next year. Don't know, we'll see how things go. Here's my ginger lily blooming in the front here. It's a particularly nice blossom on the autumn carnation encore azalea. One thing that I did inherit from Sarah is when they put her new driveway in, the brick, they dug up a lot of the old sand and gravel and grit and stuff that she had in her drive, and had asked me if I wanted it. They were going to just throw it on my driveway. Of course, it's a different color than my driveway. What we did with it is put it back in here, because that's where animals have dug holes under my fence. In fact, there are about 3 or 4 spots in the backyard as well. I don't mind the cats coming through, but cats can climb over the fence. I don't want the possums and raccoons coming in. So in any event, I put that there, and when you wet it down, it almost becomes like concrete. It's not concrete, but it binds together really hard. Here you can see the ground is quite dry, because I'm due to water this today. My thin hibiscus, Rose of Sharon, is still doing well. Again, with the thin things like that, I find I have to bind them to keep them thin. Oh, the other thing that's happening back here, let's see, the easiest one to show you. There you go. Very inconspicuous flowers on the tea olive. You see where they come out under the leaves, but their fragrance, right now, I guess because it's cold, I'll have to extricate myself from here. The scent isn't all that overwhelming, but those little dinky flowers have a very strong, sweet scent. That was the reason why, well, that's the reason why typically that people plant these bushes. So the tea olives are in bloom. Other than that, can't wait for that to bloom. That's my supposed yellow Camellia. That's the latest one that I bought. I thought of putting a Camellia in that gap in the backyard. I don't have any in that area, but it is an absolute full sun, and most camellias don't like that. Let's take a look at the dianthus in the front of the fence. Needs watering, but it has withstood and survived. Haven't lost a single one. You can see here. They will gradually thicken up, and they will last through the summer. And they are edible. So technically, the flowers are. I'm not sure about the plants. Technically, they do belong in a potager. Back in here, all is well. There's my edible ginger that I got from the grocery store. My marjoram is beginning to leaf out nicely. Still got my lettuces. I'm a little reluctant to harvest anything because it doesn't look like they quite caught yet. I have room for some little something in there. Oh, by the way, this lemongrass, I think I told you either last week or the week before, when I cut this back, it smelled for a couple of weeks. So I decided to cut some up and make a potpourri and bring it in the house. Not the same. It smelled for a couple of hours. I guess what makes it smell, I'm just guessing here, is the fact that it's still growing. So maybe it oozes sap through the cuts or something, but it's not made for potpourri. I did notice that's the reason why I planted my paper whites. I had paper whites in a circle around these pots. And I always plant the center with something. Well, all of those paper whites from actually this is their 3rd year, are all sprouting up. Now they may not bloom, but since I see them sprouting up, I went ahead and planted the paper whites in the pots in the backyard. I also I plant in 6s. At the pots I have, it tends to do 6, fills the pot nicely. And 18 of them are in my little drinks refrigerator in the den, waiting. I'll probably do a month before Thanksgiving, which is coming up shortly. Well, I'll count those as the ones outside, but I still have 3 pots for inside. I did buy this cilantro yesterday and put it there. I had a what did I have? Parsley, and the neighbor's cats liked to chew on it and ate it up. It was a small plant anyway. I didn't pay much for it. And funny story, I bought that yesterday thinking it was parsley. Till I got it home and went to plant it and brushed against it, and it's like, God, it's awfully strong smelling for parsley. And then I noticed it was cilantro. So parsley would last the winter, cilantro won't, but it is an herb. I do use it. Cilantro lime stuff is good. Cilantro lime chicken marinated in that is good. And my blackberries, since I've put them into the fence, they are sprouting out. The canes will get huge though, so that was the plan all along, to put them in the fence and let them just sort of take over. But that's about it for the day. Still have my pumpkins. Everything here is still looking good. I guess I'll leave you with a picture of my bananas in the front. Because, oh, by the way, the figs were delicious from the fig tree. The bananas and the cycad. So I hope you all get a chance to get out in your yards and enjoy your gardens. They are for more than working in. And keep the hurricane victims, both hurricanes, Milton and Helene, in your thoughts and prayers, because they will be suffering through recovery for many years to come. My heart goes out to them. So until next week, have a good one.